Hey guys, this is Cookie Does Stuff. Welcome back to my channel. Today, as voted by you guys on my Instagram stories, I'm going to do a sort of run through of how I made my Angel Riko outfit. I'll put up a couple of photos while I'm talking, but so this outfit was made in about a month and a half, and I entered with my friends Bleakverse Cosplay, Tiaras Cosplay, and Puffer Fluff into the open category at Auckland Armageddon's competition, and we won Best Open Group. So that was cool. It was my first time entering as well, so I really wasn't expecting anything. So I guess we'll start from the top and work our way down. And please also note that I haven't repaired anything since I came back from the convention, so there's a few things in here that are broken and that need a little bit of mending, need a little bit of love, so please just ignore that, and you'll see in the pictures what it looked like in its full glory. Yeah, so I'll start at the top. So first of all, Puffer Fluff Heather, she 3D printed these tiaras. It was a bit of a collaborative effort between the two of us, but mostly on her part. There's a little bit missing from the top here, a little teardrop that snapped off in transport that I need to glue back on. So I went out and found these little gems, and I drew up a template for this like front view basically, and then Heather took that template and turned it into this beautiful 3D model and printed it. And then that was, I believe she used a chemical process to smooth it down. She used some sort of fancy 3D printing filament. And then it was spray painted, and I glued in these pre-bought gems. And then because my card was the UR, I had an additional crown. So I had this tiara here. These flowers are a little loose. So I took a piece of fencing wire, and it's actually connected underneath this bead here. So underneath this bead is both ends of the wire. If it'll focus, it will not. How do you video? How do I video? So I basically just took these beads, these flowers I got lucky, and my local store had these, oh there we go, now it's focusing. My local store had these pre-made, and they're just beads, so I just threaded them on along with some other beads that I lined up according to the references, super glued them on, and then I hand painted the gold. For our headphones, if I can get it uncaught, so the headphones were made mostly by me. The others spray painted them, and then I did basically the other stuff. So I made like the bulk of them for the group. So one side, you know, so basically it's a piece of foam, and we hot glued some wire to the back of it and pins for securing it to our wigs. It was spray painted, then I added a couple layers of white acrylic, and then I don't know if you can see it in this light, but there's actually oh yeah, there we go. It's actually iridescent paint on top. I added a puff of fluff, haha. I added a circle of fur to all of them, and then I made these little bead strings, which is a couple of glass beads, which I wired through, and this one has a bit of wig hair caught to it. And then I hot glued these back ones to it, because it turns out that the beads we bought, we didn't know they were glass when we bought them. They were on sale at a closing down store. So we couldn't split them in half like we had hoped to, so we had to hot glue them to get them to that size, and then added a couple extra beads on top for the decoration. And then the other side is fairly simple. This one is literally holding on by a loose thread. I just made the microphone from a piece of fencing wire, put a bead on the end, and then I glued these stars on, and that just sits, when it's not broken, it sits just in front of your mouth basically. Okay, so moving down, I put my hand over the camera again. I'm really bad at filming. I'm so sorry. So moving down, I have a choker. So this was fairly easily made. It's just gathered fabric that I used pinking shears on the edges off and fray checked. And there's a shear layer as well. Just gathered them in, sewed them to a piece of ribbon, sewed another piece of ribbon over the top for the stripe. Added this cameo that I found, and I made these extra little ribbon pieces. So that's the choker, nice and simple, just closes with a safety pin because that was the comfiest way to do it. I have quite a wide neck, so I find whenever I use any sort of other attachment it just immediately comes undone. I need something as secure as a safety pin for me. So next up is the bodice. The bodice was quite a lot of work. It took me probably about 11 hours to make. So I started with the same pattern that I used for Cyber, and I slash and spread the top section to make the top gathered, and then I put an elastic channel into that as well. So the bottom edge of this top part is fitted still, and it's got darts in it, but the top is gathered. And then it's got the flowers. I added a piece of ribbon, I laid it down on top of my chest while I was wearing the outfit to measure it. So I measured out this piece of ribbon, and I glued these flowers individually and the leaves individually onto this. And then I've got my, if I can untangle it, there's a bow here which is currently a little bit untied. I need to retie it, but I just added some stars to the bottom of some thread for that. So that's the top portion. This lower portion took a very, very long time. This is probably what took the longest, because in order to make this, first of all, this fabric we got really lucky, and we found this gradient fabric at Spotlight. It was a little expensive, but it was the perfect colours for what we needed. We got very, very lucky. So first of all, I had to, once I'd measured everything out, I had to do pinking shears along the bottom of the bodice, and then I hand painted all of the little scallops, and I hand painted all of the patterns, and the judge was actually asking me if I was using a marker or a template or a stencil or something. I just went for it. I quite like hand painting, so I went straight for it. And then I had to add in the rhinestones. These rhinestones were iron-on, and for the vast majority it came in a sheet, but because of these curved bits at the bottom, all of these bottom sections I did have to individually place and do, and then these little stars we had also bought in bulk for the group and added on individually as well, and they're also iron-on. And then for this front part, I satin stitched along the edges, fray checked and trimmed. These parts, so this white bit here is permanently attached, so it's not a complete undershirt. I thought that if I put a complete undershirt it might be a bit bulky, and because it was Auckland Armageddon, usually it doesn't rain, usually it's really warm, so I planned ahead to have as little layers as possible. So this is just a little section that I sewed it in at the same time as I added the back side of this bias, and then I I hand sewed down the bias here, so this entire seam is actually hidden underneath this bias here, which was hand sewed down. And then this one's a little broken because this thread unfrays really, really quickly, and I singed the edges of all these to melt them so they wouldn't fray, but they still managed to. So these I just painted little eyelets. Apparently I was talking to my friend, and apparently they don't make bronze eyelets anymore, so I just went ahead and painted them. And then the back of it, they're just like only one set of them is attached through the back, basically. The other set is attached into the seam. And then on the back of the bodice, I put in a panel with some shirring and some lacing, just to make it a little fitted, and so that when I sell the cosplay it fits other people a little bit better. So that's that. The skirt was an actual nightmare. So if we break down the layers here, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers, and they're all attached to one yoke here, which has my elastic band in it, and I used the wrong colored thread because I was too lazy to change it. So the different layers, the breakdown is, so these top 2 layers I used pinking shears, and I hand painted the gold onto them. Is it going to focus? I don't think so. And then again, I hand painted the pattern onto this one. This one, just like on the shirt, I satin stitched and fray checked and cut. And then this one was, again, pinking sheared and painted. And then we get to the really cool part. These layers here. This is custom laser cut trim that Heather made for us. Yeah, there's a few different trims that she made for us that she laser cut. So basically, I went through all the images and figured out what trims we needed that we weren't going to be able to buy. And I made templates for them, and then Heather turned those templates into laser cutting files and laser cut them. And like, honestly, just like look at that detail. If it'll focus, she got all these teeny tiny little scallops. I didn't even put these into the template because I was like, there's no way, they're so small, I'm never going to be able to do that. But she somehow miraculously managed to do that. And then she also laser cut 500,000 little stars. So this is, I narrow hemmed the edges, and everything on my outfit is French seamed and roll hemmed and narrow hemmed. Everything is tidy and finished on it. So I added this store-bought lace, and then I added this lace, which I had a very, if it'll focus, can we get it to, there we go. I added this there was this very, very tiny little leeway for me to sew in the trim. It was a little bit of a nightmare, but we got there in the end, and then they're just tacked down at the top with a very tiny little bit of hot glue because I didn't want to put stitches. I experimented with putting stitches in the top, but I found it was puckering the lace, and I didn't like it, and I couldn't machine stitch because this is how big the gap is there. And then the stars again, I didn't want any sort of seam on them, and I couldn't use regular fabric glue because it would be sticky on the other side, so I just used a little tiny tack of hot glue. I've gotten quite good with hot glue over this project. And then so yeah, all of these layers are connected to a single yoke, and the skirt's pretty heavy. It takes quite a lot to keep it up. I have to pull it up every now and then because it is very, very heavy. But I'm really happy with how it came out. It's very poofy. Look at that. We've started to empty out the gap of things that I'm explaining. So next I might talk about my corset as well, actually. I did actually make a complete, I've never made one before, but I made a corset for this project with, and it's actually got 2 pockets in the back of it. Ignore the booby cut. I have no boobs and I have to trick people into thinking that I do. There's pockets in here, 1 pair of pocket for the angel wings and 1 for White Day, because I wore this for White Day Nezumi as well. But yeah, I did in fact make an entire corset from my own pattern, my own duct tape pattern for this project. So moving on to the sleeves. Hopefully this video doesn't get much longer. I'm almost done. So the sleeves and the sheer layer has disappeared inside, but it does in fact exist. Again, I use pinking shears and fray check for these. I beaded this portion. Oh, that one's got a little bit of something on it. It's got a little bit of mark on it. And then I have this next layer, which has I zigzagged thread over some gold thread, and I hand stitched down the bias on this so it would be nice and clean. And then these 3 layers are connected to here, where I zigzagged over some elastic because I don't know what it is about zigzagging over elastic, but I like the look of it. Like, I like how it does the thing, you know? So the top of it is basically a tube, but the bottom of the tube is actually longer because the bottom is gathered but the top is actually fitted to my arm. And there's a little tiny piece of elastic in here that has a few stitches in it just to keep it up, because I do have ice cream cone arms basically. So the top of this, you know, I roll hemmed it underneath this ribbon, and then I stitched on a couple lines of, oh, let's not look at that, but that one's a bit wobbly. I'm only a novice. We entered into the open category because we had Heather in our group, and we didn't want to leave her out of the group just so that we could enter novice. That would be really rude. But yeah, so I stitched down the scalloped one first, and we got really lucky and I found this beautiful trim on AliExpress. It was super cheap and I'm very impressed with it and will definitely order some more. So I stitched down that, and then I stitched down this ribbon over the top. And again, I'm only a novice, so my stitching is not amazing. I tried my very, very best. What is that? Get out of here. But again, I've only been sewing for a couple years and I'm completely self-taught, so I am a novice. And so was Rose and Ellie. We're all 3 novices, but Heather is quite experienced, so we had to enter open. So that's the sleeves. I don't think I have my ring. I think I've put it in my jewelry box, but we bought some rings that are just little roses that we bought for the entire group. And then I think the last thing I have to talk about before the wings is our anklets. So the anklets, Heather has made anklets before. I think that these are 2 non-matching parts. All of our anklets are all together, so I just grabbed 2 randomly out of the pack. So Heather 3D printed these, and I actually didn't get to it, but I was supposed to put, but especially because mine stayed together really well, I didn't find I needed it, but I was supposed to put elastic through these channels, but they just, I can't do it with these 2 because they're not a matching pair, but they just clip together, and then they were painted and stuff, and we added this little section here, so we've got a little bit of organza, I guess. I'm not very good at fabric names. Which I fray checked the edges off. A couple flowers, and then this little bit of beading here. And then underneath that we had... Why are these stuck together? Is this... Oh no, it's just one big one. We had these poofs off fabric. So that's the outfit itself. Hello again. It's a different day. I was just editing the video and realised that I never talked about the shoes that we made, because we needed clear shoes, but ones with heels were expensive and weren't going to make it on time. We did actually order some for a few of the group, but for some reason their orders were cancelled, just randomly. And then I refused to wear heels. I have, like, medical conditions that stop me from being able to wear heels properly. So I needed flat shoes, and for some reason the only flat ones I could find to buy were literally Gucci. So that wasn't going to happen. So I thought I would make my shoe, and it ended up that ended up being the best option for the entire group as well. So I came up with the way we made these. Basically, I made a duck shaped pattern of my foot. I marked it out. I cut it out off. This is clear table cover, which is super cheap. Sorry for the construction sounds in the background. They've decided to install some sort of bench or something. So I made that. Underneath it, I'll put up some pictures of the work in progress, because I did actually make a tutorial for this as well. And if anyone's interested in the tutorial, just let me know and I'll, like, put a link somewhere. I'm not going to make a whole video about it, but I do have, like, a written tutorial about it. So underneath this, it's like, this is one piece. It works out to one flat piece. It's got some, like, boop boops underneath it, which fold underneath and glue down. And then the back of it, this part is, oh, there's a letter on it. I did not know that. This part is super glued down, to close in the back, and then everything else is contact cement glued. So, first we contact cemented it to the, a piece of foam that we'd cut to fit. Fucking freaking construction sounds, honestly. I'm gonna try and do this quickly. We took a jandal, we took the thong pieces out of it, Heather dremeled them all down so that they're nice and smooth because they weren't exactly the size of the shoe we were making. More construction sounds. Okay, really quickly. And then we contact cemented it to that. So that's how we made our shoes. Okay, bye. There's too much construction. And then for the wings, my big boys, basically, I created a template for the entire group to use, which included all of the feathers and the wing caps. We cut them out of foam. The feathers were dyed with fabric dye, I believe. I actually traded dyeing feathers for painting part of Heather's trim because I just didn't want to deal with all the feathers. I had 3 pairs of wings that I was making because I made this, I made our yoles, and I made our rubies. So I was making 3 pairs of wings, so I was like, no, I'm gonna trade for Heather's trim, which actually took considerably longer. So they were fabric dyed, and then I added a little bit of chalk to them to make the gradient a little smoother. The tops of them, they were contact cemented together, and then some trim was added. These were scored in. I believe Ellie Bleakverse did most of the caps. We had different jobs that we split amongst the group to save ourselves some stress. This is a bit caught. And then we just added some flowers. And the structure for this set of wings, how I keep it up, is I have these 2 hooks here, which the wire goes all the way through here, basically under the cap. And then I have ribbon, so this hooks into the pocket, and then there's ribbon here that loops around my underbust and ties, and that keeps them pretty straight. I know that Heather, for hers, she had just 2 big metal rulers holding hers up. I can't remember how Ellie did hers. I don't think I got a good look at them. We all had different cuts to our outfits, so we all had to choose different ways to do them. And then you can see that the back, I didn't have enough flowers to put them there, but I never take photos from the back really anyway, so I wasn't too worried. And then there's just a little section that covers it. So yeah, that is my angel outfit. That's how I made it. It took a very long time. I also was making our yoles and our rubies at the same time as well. Yoles was pretty similar to mine, just with less skirt layers, so hers was made in a very similar fashion, and rubies was fairly easy as well. She just had a circle skirt and a shirt with a lot of layers on it, and an armband with flowers on it, which I just glued vines onto. But yeah, so that's what I did. I have to fix it a whole bunch. It's got a lot of things wrong with it at the moment. I need to fix it. But yeah, I'm really happy with how it came out. It's the biggest thing that I've worked on thus far, and it's definitely given me the confidence to work on other bigger things in future. But yeah, so thank you everyone for your support. Thank you everyone who congratulated my team and I after our win. We really appreciate it. Like, I honestly can't believe that we took away a prize. Like, I'm still just I still can't believe it. And especially congratulations to Tea Cake, who took the countrywide championship. Girl, you absolutely, perfect, absolutely deserved it. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. The next video I put up will probably be my fairy tale Nezumi tutorial once I finish working on that, followed by Snowy Mountain, Hanyo, and Nico. I'm working on those simultaneously. So look forward to those. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see those. Let me know if you've got any ideas for videos that you'd like to see me make, anything that you have any questions about that you'd like me to explain. And if you have any questions about my Riko outfit, feel free to drop them below. I will do my absolute best to answer everything. Thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Bye!